Hello everyone, Anna from Savvy Cat Realty speaking to you today about visas and the SAF situation in Portugal in 2022. So as many of you know, the SAF situation is currently kind of chaotic. SAF was supposed to be rebranded this year and it was first supposed to be in January, then postponed to March, then postponed to June, and then postponed again, and no one really knows exactly what's going to happen to SAF. And services are a complete mess. As you know, we do help our clients with the immigration situations and appointments and so on, and it's been completely crazy. We have clients that are trying to book their appointments for SAF to do their visa processes, and there is no vacancy for appointments, and you kind of have to call every day in the hope that you get someone who gave up. And they opened, I think it's every 3 months or every 6 months, they open a certain number of spots, and those spots disappear in a day or something like that, and things are a bit chaotic on the visa side of things. And that also applies to visa processes, and things are rather slow. Many of my clients work with the D7 visa, some of them with the golden visa, and in general they have the processes have been slow. There is some clients that somehow got their visa in a month, but that is the exception, not to rule. Sometimes when you hire certain services that have contacts in the embassy that you're working with, this applies mostly for the D7. It can happen something like that, but then I had clients that had 6-7 months wait to get their D7 visa, and this can be quite frustrating. So that is the current situation with SAF, and unfortunately I cannot give you much more information than that because no one really knows exactly what's going to happen regarding the SAF situation. I really hope they do a rebranding and they create a new proper service and hire more people, because sure, the border patrol can be done by the police and that makes complete and perfect sense, but the visa emission definitely needs a department of its own, and there has been a huge increase of immigration. The numbers have been rising quite fast. The numbers of this year for immigration I think have doubled. I have to double check, but the chart will show up here, and well, it's definitely needed for a proper service to accompany this trend. So, going into our topic of today, the visa options to immigrate to Portugal in 2022. So, I'm first going to talk to you about the golden visa. The biggest advantage of the golden visa is flexibility. So the big difference between the golden visa and the other kinds of visas is that the golden visa only requires you to be in the country for 15 days per year. And that means you basically just need to spend a vacation in Portugal every year, and you have residency rights and European Union access like any other resident. So that's one of the biggest advantages of the golden visa. Golden visa has been restricted this year as per January 2022. Many of the high density locations in Portugal have been excluded. This exclusion was made by population density, and I believe that the rate was set to exclude some of the cities in the Algarve that actually don't have that high of a population density but have had an absurd inflation of real estate prices due to golden visas and foreign investment. And the state decided to do this kind of restriction to try and control things a bit. Do I think this will control things a bit? Well, I think it will decrease the interest in the golden visa. However, there is a number of other ways that you can still buy property without having these restrictions. One of them is any other kind of visa, a D7 visa, for example, and another is simply by being So another way to have residency and no restrictions is to get the European Union free border pass. So any European residents can buy property anywhere in Portugal, and they will have absolutely no restrictions at all. Actually, you can buy property in Portugal without being a resident, but if you want to be a resident and not have this and get a visa and that kind of thing, then yes, you can go for the D7, the D2, the European Union border open border policy. So I will talk about those in a bit. I'm going to start with the golden visa for reference. So the biggest change in the golden visas, like I was saying, was the exclusion of a lot of cities and locations based on population density. This was done by district, and you can see the map of the restrictions. As you can see, a big part of the coastal area of Portugal has been excluded, and this is of course one of the areas of biggest interest in Portugal. I do believe that some of these exclusions were kind of excessive, but like I said, I think it was because of the Algarve and its low population density and high prices, because areas like, for example, Caldas da Rainha could benefit a lot from golden visa investment and yet were excluded due to population density. However, it is what it is. And at the moment, you can only buy property and use it for golden visa purposes in the golden areas of this map. And truth is, these areas can still know they are quite interesting for investment, because the prices are not as nearly as inflated, and they can be very beautiful and very interesting areas. The biggest problem of the interior of Portugal is the lack of amenities, public services, and public transportation. So that's the biggest issue with going to the more interior of Portugal. However, when it comes to purely investment, you can still make quite good investments, because there are still very interesting areas in the center interior of Portugal, both from a touristic and residential point of view. When it comes to rental in general, there is a lot more demand than supply, so that's not a big issue pretty much anywhere. It's just about marketing it right. Regarding the limits for golden visa, the current limit is 500k investment in these low density areas. Previously, there was a lower limit for low density areas. However, now it's 500k minimum everywhere. This investment can be done in multiple properties. You don't have to buy a single property, and definitely on the more interior areas, I recommend buying more than one property, because the prices aren't nearly as inflated, and things that are going for 500k that are, unless it's like a big hervad, so that's like a farm with a lot of hectares of land, it's probably not going to go for 500k, because prices, like I said, aren't that inflated in these areas. So if you want to buy, for example, apartments, it makes sense to buy more than one. The golden visa does not make restrictions on this, and as long as you comply with the limit, you can have multiple property that comes down to this amount. You can even buy it in different locations. We do help with that for our clients, and because we work with the whole country, we are able to source deals in the whole country and oriented towards investment. And for these kind of deals, we often do off-network marketing and find off-market deals for our clients. The golden visa has other ways of being obtained besides the real estate investment. Real estate investment was the most popular way because of giving you the residency too, because in order to have to be a resident, you have to have an address in Portugal. So if you use a different kind of investment method that doesn't require you to buy a property, you will still need to have an address in Portugal. So that's one of the reasons the golden visa property investment was quite popular. There is a number of other investment types that can be done like creating job posts, investing in a company, investing in Portuguese funds, investment in arts and culture in Portugal. So there's a number of ways to go around this. However, we only work with the property side of things. In my company, there's of course other companies that specialize in the other types of golden visa approaches. So this more or less resumes the program for the golden visa. The golden visa, you need to buy property before you get the visa, so it's very important to make sure you do things right, because only after you get the property you submit everything with the documentation for the golden visa process. And it's important to work with someone that knows what they're doing, because one of the highest rates of denial is due to incomplete and improper submissions of documentations. We do not include the fee for the submission and lawyer verification of golden visas in our service, because that service alone done by lawyers usually costs between 5 and 10k. We do have partners that keep the price more or less in 4k and work with those, and we do everything in partnership with our clients, with our partners, so our clients don't need to be worried about anything. So this more or less resumes what the golden visa is about and how you go around getting it. After you make the submission, you have to wait for approval. You get an initial notification saying that the submission was accepted, and that it's in review. Then you get called for the interview and biometric data. The documentation you have to submit is more or less the same for all kinds of visas. You have to submit a criminal record. This is a federal criminal record from your country of origin. You have to submit a number of documentation regarding your income and of course your identity and ownerships and all of that. We do have all of these listed in our blog post about the golden visa that you can find here. So this is all I have to say about the golden visa. Like I said, the biggest advantage is the flexibility. If you do want to spend a longer time in Portugal and are planning to be a long-term resident and spend more than 6 months per year on the country, the D7 visa will probably be a more suitable and cheaper option, because the D7, the golden visa, besides the lawyer costs of 5,000 minimum 5,000 euros, it also has administrative and tax fee costs of about 30k. So it is an expensive visa. The biggest advantage is the flexibility it gives. If you are not too worried about that flexibility, the D7 is a very, very good option, because it is basically a self-sustenance visa where you just need to prove to the Portuguese state that you have the ability to take care of yourself financially and you won't be a burden to the state. And these usually it is requested a monthly income. It's harder and harder to approve with savings alone nowadays. So this monthly income can be due to labor, retirement, passive funds, rentals, anything that has been generating a stable income source for you for more than 1 year. They usually request 1 to 2 years finance state, sometimes 3. And you have to prove that you can sustain yourself with a minimum of, I think it's about 750 euros per month per adult, and then every second adult the amount goes slower. I think for every second adult is 350 euros. All of this information is listed on our blog post about the D7 visa, showing here everything that is required, and the conditions are listed. In order to apply for the D7 visa, you need to apply from your country of origin through the Portuguese embassy, and depending on the country, this varies a lot. One of the requirements it is to have a proof of adequate accommodation, and on our end this is quite broad. and it varies a lot from embassy to embassy. Most of the embassies in the US have been requiring a 1-year lease, and that you have to present this contract when you make the submission, so prior to you actually going to Portugal, which can be a bit problematic because it means you will be paying for this lease even in the month you are not there yet. As I mentioned, you do need to spend at least 6 months per year in the country or leave no more than 8 intercalated months. So you can spend full 6 months in a row outside of the country, or you can spend a month and come back, and then a month and come back, and to a total of 8 months maximum outside. So that's one of the restrictions when it comes to the D7 visa. One of the things that is also important to mention is with any visa, being a foreign resident, you can have access to the NHR program. So the NHR program is the non-habitual tax resident program of Portugal, which gives a number of tax benefits to foreign residents, and it is very, very beneficial and very attractive. It is much more interesting to be a foreign in Portugal than it is to be a Portuguese person in Portugal because of this program. And in order to take advantage of this program, you also need to spend in the country 6 months per year or outside no more than 8 intercalated months. So if you want to come with a golden visa but use the NHR program, you still need to be here the same amount as a D7 visa. So that's something to be aware of. In order to get the D7 visa, the process is more or less the same from here on. So after you make the application on your local Portuguese embassy, you need to wait for it to go for approval and so on, and you will have a biometric interview in Portugal once the process is about to finish and the visa is approved. In order to this, like I was saying, these interviews have been quite late because of the SAF situation. One of the things that can be interesting for the D7 is that things like a recommendation letter from a local and a year worth of savings in a Portuguese bank account can give you points on your application and make it easier to approve. So that's another thing to be aware of. These are the 2 most popular kinds of visas for my clients. There are other types of visas, for example the D2 visa, that is the entrepreneurship visa, in which you have to submit a business plan and then go through with it. And of course this business plan has to be viable, and with this visa you also have to spend the same amount of time in the country, and you have to maintain the things you propose to do in your business plan, and this business plan has to be approved by the Portuguese state. Then there are other kinds of visas like the work visa, in which you get a job here in Portugal, but then your visa will be dependent on that job. If you lose that job, you will lose your visa. There is the student visa that applies the same thing but course and studying. Then you have the family reunification visa. If you have a direct family member, and direct family members are considered to be parents, sons and grandparents that are residents of Portugal, you can request family reunification through this type of visa. There is also a high qualification visa for highly qualified personnel with master degree, especially on technology and engineering and that kind of thing. It honestly isn't that different from the work visa, it just gives you more flexibility because it's not directly tied to a job, although you do need to have worked in the field. In regards to European citizens, there is free circulation within European Union, and in order to be a resident of Portugal using a European Union citizenship, you just need to have residence, establish yourself in Portugal. So as most of you know, the tourism visa is for about 3 months. So for the European Union free circulation, you basically come to Portugal, you get a rental or a house, and then you go to a junta de freguesia and request a document saying that you are a resident here. and then this document gets sent to SEF, and the process is pretty much automatic to give you the visa. So it's a fairly simple process compared to being overseas in non-European Union residents. So another note that I would like to make is that for the golden visa, it is very easy to agglomerate family. It's something I should have mentioned in the beginning, but it completely slipped my mind. The other visas, for example, for the T7, you can also apply as a family agglomerate as long as you prove that you have the income to sustain your family agglomerate. The golden visa, you can basically agglomerate your family at no extra charge as long as you make that 500k investment, and then there is a bureaucratical fee, but it's not that high per family member. And I think this basically covers the situation with visas and staff in Portugal at the moment. We do support our clients with the whole process, both in buy and in rental. Our rental services can be purchased through our website at www.savvycatrealty.com. Buying services need to go through initial advisory call with me that can also be scheduled on our website. The cost of this call is deducted from the package you choose going forward. This is of course to filter information, as I always give advice and information to the better of my ability in order to help our clients, whether or not they decide to work with us, and clients do get a lot of value initial advisory calls with me. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and we will always come back to you. And I will see you again soon. Bye!